Hey everyone, welcome back again to another episode of Berlin Noir. And for today, we're going to be working on some more industry, revisiting this area here that we built and extended several episodes ago. But today, we're going to be working on this area here, and in particular, the Royal Porcelain Factory. So, this was pointed out by one of you, one of the viewers here, several episodes ago when we were working on some industry previously. And I kind of asked you guys, for some ideas as far as industry goes. That's not necessarily just something super generic or over polluting, I suppose. Because in that episode, we were working closer to Charlottenburg. So just from what I know, I figured, that area probably wouldn't have had, a ton of really dirty smokestacks spewing out, steam and coal dust or whatever. So I was, looking for something a little more less polluting and something more unique. So when one of you guys pointed this out to me, that there was, a fairly famous porcelain manufacturer and company here right nearby, I was like, all right, that sounds like a good idea. And I did take a several episode break from working on this area. I know when I first, fixed this area to make it look a little more realistic to how it is in real life and started working on some industry, I said that I was, fairly motivated to continue working in that particular area. But I kind of figured it didn't really make much sense to do a lot of episodes just focused on industry, back to back to back, since it's a pretty sizable area. And this area, if I were to just completely knock it out, with consecutive episodes, it would probably have been at least 3 or 4, probably more episodes. So that's a bit much to just have a bunch of repetitive industrial stuff. So I took a little break. But yes, we are back in this area and with the porcelain factory. So for this, and looking at the aerial view that I showed at the very start of the episode, what I assume was like the center, I guess, of that picture, if you wanted to go back or look at it or anything. But there's kind of like a square building, more or less, and I guess the building, it's not just a solid building, but in general it makes a kind of square looking shape, I suppose. But I imagine that was the actual manufacturing plant, since today this does exist still, of course, but this area is still pretty different. There's really the only building that looks to still exist, or at least to have survived from that time period to today, is this one in particular that I'm building. So again, that's what I imagine is the actual manufacturing plant. And I did make it look a little larger, I think, such as at the very start when I was working along the road there and make it kind of angled there. I don't believe that was part of the manufacturing plant, since it kind of looked like just generic buildings, houses or whatever, just typical German buildings. But I just continued with this building theme, which is a pretty new asset, I believe. It just came out several weeks ago, and it's really nice. I love the textures to it, so I figured I'd use it, since I subscribed when I saw it on the workshop instantly, and was like, yeah, it's a really nice asset. So figured it was as good a time as ever to just use it now. But yeah, so what I'm doing here is kind of making like the outside portion of the factory, since there seemed to be like a larger center part in the center, which had some sort of structure. I couldn't really make out exactly what it was. I'm not sure, maybe if it was like a showroom. I'm guessing that would have probably existed back then, to show off the finished products for people who wanted to maybe just buy a couple ones here and there, or if they wanted to, order, a whole set of fancy porcelain, dishware or vases, whatever it may be. But yeah, we do get to that in a second. But this here is just a little, walkway spanning the two buildings, just for simplicity, of course. Rather than having to exit the building, you just cross over. Just a simple little added detail there. But yeah, so this is the little building here that I was talking about just a second ago, being in the center here. I didn't really know what to use, but that's what I went with. It doesn't quite match the theme exactly, so maybe it's not the best choice of building there, but that is what I used. But yeah, so I did take a break, as you can see, since we jumped over to here. I took a break while building, just more or less finish off just the building. So not really the detailing. I wanted to just kind of do this entire area, lay down all the buildings, some of the roads, since it's a really unusual looking area, just strictly looking from the aerial view, that I showed from the start. As always, I say, it's sometimes frequently hard to make out exactly what's going on. And this is definitely one of those instances, since it seems to be a large mixture of industrial, buildings, obviously, but also a lot of different houses and really small ones that looked like almost just private residences, not like any sort of apartment or multi-use building, which was kind of confusing. I did kind of go with that, so, I'm sure I'm wrong as to exactly what their function was. And since they don't exist today, I can't really, reference Google Maps today. But yeah, this here is just some additional industrial buildings nearby, not necessarily part of the porcelain factory, although I suppose they could be, if you wanted to. But just finishing off some of the, industrial feel to this part in particular. So taking a break from the factory, I wanted to work on this area here. And I show you this zoomed up picture, which is from the same picture as before, just zoomed in. Just kind of give you guys a sense of what I work with, It's hard to make out exactly what is there. The factory was in the top left corner of that photo. And aside from that, it's just a lot of trees and smaller buildings. And even what looks like paths just kind of meandering their way through the buildings and such. And yeah, I don't know, that's one example which, working with such, just an aerial view in black and white all the way back from the 1928, obviously the quality isn't going to be there, but, that's what I work with, whenever I do these videos. So sometimes, the pictures are better than others. Sometimes I have other references, but this area in particular, I really had nothing to go off of besides that aerial view. So what I decided to do, since I really had no idea what it was, if you happen to know what it is, definitely let me know. Or if you have a good guess as to what it could be, let me know. But yeah, so I wanted to make it just some smaller residential buildings, mostly with, I guess they would have the businesses on the lower floor, as was typical, of course, back then and today. But like that little patio there with the chairs and such, like, it could be a little restaurant that could probably serve the workers at the porcelain factory. And then just these smaller buildings here, I know it's definitely common back then, especially for workers to live, right next to their place of employment, or even sometimes, your work was in the same block as where you lived, right? In the center of some of the larger blocks in Berlin, there'd be little factories sometimes, or just small businesses, of course, that a lot of the people would work at that live there. So that's kind of what I was going for with this, that the people that work at the plant, or I should say the manufacturing plant, I guess some of them would live in this area in particular, and the rest just probably nearby as well. But yeah, again, it's hard to say exactly what this area was, so I just kind of built whatever felt right, and this is more or less what happened. So anyways, once again, I wanted to show off some of your guys' own work in the game, and this week we have a really cool city by the Anno. And first up, we have an awesome overview of the old town in his city. I absolutely love the layout, how it kind of fans out from that center point there along the river, and also that kind of canal that just separates the old town from the rest of the city. And here we got the train yard for the city, very large train sheds there. I'm sure, if this city had a particular industry, a lot of products and stuff going through there. And then to top it off, we have an awesome aerial view of the city. It's hard to complain about something like this. It's just an awesome view of the city, and a great job. You sent it to me over a month ago, so I'm sure you've made a lot of progress on the city since then. But really good work. Keep building it, I guess. Hopefully the save's still functioning and your computer is handling the details and such of the city well. And I'd love to see more of it in the future on the Discord, and probably show off, more progress of the city if you want to share that as well. But yeah, so thank you for sharing that on the Discord chat. And if anyone else wants to show off some of their own work in the game, your own cities, whatever it may be, just go ahead and join the Discord chat. Link is in the description, and we share your own photos and such, and we just have a fun time discussing the game and our own work in the game. So yeah, definitely check that out if you are interested. But so moving on from that, just adding some small details here outside of the homes, I guess. Still, I wanted to add something there just to give it a little grimy feel, not something too perfect since it is right next to some factories. So I wanted to add maybe that'd be some trash from just piles of wood and maybe unused materials. I don't really know. But just something small that there to kind of fill in the space. But here's one of the smaller buildings that were nearby the factory that didn't quite look residential, or normal your normal German blocks of residential commercial buildings. So I decided just to add some type of factory looking thing. In this case, it's just a warehouse. The warehouse maybe is kind of modern looking. It's generic enough, so that's why I used it. But it's a nice asset nonetheless, so yeah, it's decided to use that one. But I didn't really know exactly what to do with it, so I just placed it next to the factory, added that wall around there, and then added these doors so people would be whatever they do inside the warehouse / factory, they would put it outside, and then trucks would come in and take it away. And just adding some simple crates, since it's hard to go wrong with just placing crates, since I do definitely use them a lot. It's generic enough that you could literally say this is anything and it would make sense. But so just trying to fill in these kind of awkward areas with all the weird shapes and corners. I tried out a couple different buildings to fit in this corner here. I wanted to go with something a little more industrial looking, but nothing really quite fit in here or looked well. So yeah, it is what it is, just that small building there. Made a little back lot here with the trucks. So, again, this could be perhaps a part of the porcelain factory, or it could be something completely unrelated. Whatever you want it to be, really. But just added some small beams there. And then just to make it look like it's been sitting there a little while, I added that orangey pile decal there just to make it look like the rust is kind of coming off. But so this area here is another, or probably the best example in this episode of something that I have 100% no idea what this is. So I'll throw up a picture once again zoomed in on the area and tell me what you think this is. If you happen to know for whatever reason what this actually is, definitely let me know. But I just want to see all your guys' guesses, because maybe, I don't know, maybe you guys happen to guess right and it makes complete sense. But just looking at it without any really knowledge of this area back then, I was completely stumped as to what this was, because it looks like little houses again. I know they're not. Maybe small businesses, maybe they're the offices of some of the people that work at the porcelain factory, so some of the bosses and managers, maybe these are their offices. I don't know. But I wanted to, of course, keep the general same feel and look, so I went with these really small buildings here, just little 1x1 size buildings, and just more or less trying to copy it the best I could, even though it seemed weird. There's these little bushes there out front, and even though it doesn't really make much sense to do that, I decided to do that. And then for this, I didn't really know what to fill in the space, so I just went with just some dirt decals just to kind of dirty up the area, make it not look like actual houses, because they're not houses, so I don't want them to look like that. So yeah, and adding more trees, even though much less trees than there actually were in this area, at least based on the aerial view. So yeah, again, I actually tried several attempts at messing around in this area, different buildings and such, just trying to place down really whatever and see what looked best, because really nothing looked right necessarily. I mean, if it weren't for the fact that I saw this in picture, it's not something I would have made otherwise. So I don't know. Yeah, let me know what you guys think that area is, and maybe I'll come back and change it if you actually point out what it is in real life. But yeah, so this is pretty much it for laying the stuff outside of the factory. And yeah, we're going to be moving on to the cool part, which is detailing the inner parts of the porcelain factory. So now that we're back working on the factory and detailing it, I figured I'd go into depth a little more into the factory, exactly the history and such. Although I should mention here, what I'm doing is converting this little lamppost here to PO, just so we have that little green pole in the middle, which I want to be rope. And basically, see those like doors on multiple levels? At first when I saw this asset, I was kind of confused as to that, why there was doors when there's no floor, like when you can open the door and walk out and fall to your death or something. But no, then I realized, hey, this is meant for, lifting up boxes or crates or lowering them, maybe finished products and such to different trucks. And, since, you didn't have fancy elevators back then to lift, a bunch of materials and such, you had to do it the hard way, which was manually lift and lower these crates and such with a rope to all the different levels of the building, which is a very nice detail that give props to the creator of the assets as well. But also here, this is this is supposed to be the porcelain. It's kind of weird, I know, since it's really colored, kind of bright. So once it's all said and done and you see the finished products, let me know what you think of that. I might go back and change it just so it's kind of more generic colors, so whites, light yellows, maybe light oranges, stuff like that. Since of course porcelain is white, but I wanted to have some sort of color, since they would be painted and such with different pictures, flowers, plants, people, whatever it may be. And from a distance, it looks fine, I guess. Yeah, let me know what you think once I finish up with this area. But yeah, I wanted it to be something that shows, that there's, porcelain, right? Since this is a porcelain factory, realistically, everything would probably have been packaged in those crates, right, for safekeeping of the porcelain, since that is, of course, very fragile. And, stuff like this on these little pallets isn't realistic, really, by any means, but just so you can see something, right, with your own eyes, rather than just having generic crates, which would carry it in real life. So, yeah, that's why I wanted to do something, just so you can see some color to, kind of, suggest that is the porcelain, and that this is, in fact, a porcelain, manufacturer. But anyways, as I said, I did want to get into just some brief history of the porcelain factory. But yeah, so it is the Royal Porcelain Factory, and royal because it was officially founded in 1763 when it was bought by Frederick II of Prussia. So it was, in fact, a royal institution that was owned by the government all the way up until 1918, after the fall of the monarch, after World War I. But yeah, so in German, the abbreviations are KPM, which from what I gathered, kind of reading things and looking at some of the products, that same logo is still kind of kept around, just since that is, important part of the history, and definitely kind of cool just to kind of keep, the royal aspect of it, which is certainly cool, I think. But yeah, so also conveniently, since this series is set in 1929, at least according to the Wikipedia article of the Porcelain Factory, it says in 1929 there was a pretty significant shift in the art style of the porcelain that was being produced. So it was heavily influenced by the Bauhaus and the whole movement, and the architectural stuff, but also the artistic movement of Bauhaus. And in 1929 there was a shift to kind of make more contemporary art, less so this extravagant, super luxurious products, and more common household porcelain. So I guess there was more of an approach to make it more accessible, even though I imagine it was still quite, expensive. So maybe more affordable for some, but, of course, for the most part, most people weren't going to have really fancy porcelain products in their homes. But nonetheless, there was definitely an effort made to try to make it more contemporary and more, household objects, which, like I said, since it said that was happening in 1929, so I thought I'd mention that since this series is in 1929, which is cool, because I always love seeing how many things happened, drastic events or even small things that happened in 1929. And I know, obviously, that's right, before the stock market crash and before things got, I guess you could say, a little hairy in Berlin and Germany as a whole, just to put it nicely. But yeah, it's still always cool seeing all these different things happening at the exact time that this series is taking place. It's coincidental, I didn't really plan on that when I first started the series all the way back. But yeah, definitely as I go along with the series and learn more about Berlin and everything in it and the history and such, it's definitely cool seeing all that type of stuff. But yeah. So anyways, the rest of the episode here is just detailing up the rest of the factory and kind of some of the other surrounding industrial areas like this here. Just adding some of these small props just to make it look like it's, of course, a functional place that, employs a lot of people and such. But yeah, so I do want to mention that we are very close to 2,000 subscribers for the channel, which is another goal, of course. We hit 1,000 a while back. And of course, our next logical goal is 2,000. So I want to thank you all for your continued support and, loving the series. It's I love making it for you guys, and it's just been a blast doing this for over a year now. But yeah, definitely, if you enjoyed, give it a thumbs up, or you can comment if you have any ideas or suggestions, whatever it may be. It all helps help people find the channel and get us closer to that 2,000 subscriber mark. But so yes, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I will see you all next time.